Is it finally going to happen? Is the battle that started in the field of Ukraine now spreading worldwide in the shape of a war? A world war? Indeed, a panicking situation is highly increasing right now that Russia President Vladimir Putin's onslaught, which is the greatest conventional military invasion since World War II, could be the start of a new global conflict. So are we really heading towards World War III? Let's find out in this video. Hello everyone, welcome to the Ukraine War. We are here to deliver to you all the new political movements regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflicts, the casualties, strategies, and the aftermaths of the ongoing war in detail. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon if you don't want to miss any of those. Without any further delay, let's start. Hundreds of civilians and thousands of troops have been killed, and the war has displaced about 10 million Ukrainians after its tenure of more than a month. The battle has gone to a different level as Russia employs increasingly lethal methods, and Ukrainian demands for NATO to establish a no-fly zone go unheeded, heightening fears that fighting could spill over into neighboring nations. To begin the story, let's go back to the beginning, the invasion by Russia. On February 24, 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine, escalating the Russo-Ukrainian conflict, which began in 2014 with the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity. With more than 5 million Ukrainians fleeing the country and a quarter of the population displaced, the invasion has triggered Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War. The Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic, two self-proclaimed statelets in Donbass controlled by pro-Russian rebels, were recognized by Russia on February 21, 2022. The Russian Federation Council authorized the use of military force abroad the next day, and Russian troops entered both regions openly. On the morning of February 24th, Putin announced a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. With a little time gap thereafter, missiles and aircraft attacked Ukraine's capital Kyiv and were quickly followed by a massive ground invasion from various directions. President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine responded by declaring martial law and mobilizing the military. Russia, Belarus, and the two occupied Ukrainian areas all launched multi-pronged offensives in Crimea and Donbass. The Russian forces had more success in the south 3 weeks after the invasion began, while incremental advances elsewhere forced them into attrition warfare, resulting in rising civilian losses. Russian forces withdrew from Kyiv in late March 2022, claiming to be refocusing on Donbass, leaving behind damaged communities and mounting proof of atrocities against civilians. The invasion has been widely denounced as an act of aggression around the world. The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution calling for Russia's military to be fully withdrawn. Russia was ejected from the Council of Europe when the International Court of Justice ordered it to cease military operations. Many countries put fresh sanctions on Russia's and the world's economies, as well as providing humanitarian and military aid to Ukraine. Protests took place all around the world. In Russia, they were met with mass arrests and heightened media restrictions, including the prohibition of the phrases war and invasion. Several corporations pulled their products and services from Russia and Belarus, and Russian state-funded media outlets were barred from broadcasting and were deleted from online platforms. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden warned that Putin could deploy chemical or biological weapons, and reports from Mariupol imply that warning has come true. This has been the terrifying escalation of the perilous war. When there is a constant fear that a third global war is gearing up, Ukraine's President Zelensky told NBC News 3 weeks into the conflict that Putin may have already started World War III. He said, "We've seen this 80 years ago when the Second World War had started. Nobody would be able to predict when the full-scale war would start." As of April 2022, several analysts are concerned that Russia's continuous invasion of Ukraine may devolve into World War III. In April 2022, Russian state television declared the start of a Third World War, encouraging Russians to recognize that their country was now fighting against NATO infrastructure in Ukraine. Veronika Melchor-Zervoa, a journalist living in Kyiv, believes a worldwide conflict has been developing for years. According to her, Ukrainians did not believe that Putin would dare to launch a full-scale invasion, but he did, because in Moldova, Georgia, Syria, and Ukraine, Russia got away with its crimes. Although senior government officials, diplomats, and military analysts have ruled out the concept of enforcing a no-fly zone over Ukraine, Politico reports that there is a grave danger that the US and other NATO allies might be pushed into a war at almost any time. Now here's a question of how a battle between two countries can be transformed into a world war. To understand this, we have to go back to World War I and II. Let's start with World War I. On June 28, 1914, at Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was shot to death along with his wife Sophie by Serbian nationalist Gavrilo Princip. The killing of Franz Ferdinand sparked off a fast-rising series of events. Austria-Hungary, like many other countries throughout the world, blamed the Serbian government for the assassination and sought to use the recurrence as a reason for finally resolving the issue of Serbian nationalism. The assassination sparked a worldwide war that lasted until 1918. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, which were the Central Powers, fought against the United Kingdom, France, Russia, Italy, Romania, Canada, Japan, and the US during the conflict with the Allied powers. World War I saw unparalleled levels of bloodshed and destruction because of new military technologies and the horrors of trench warfare. Then comes the horrifying World War II, where an invasion turned into a full-scale war. The invasion of Poland by Hitler in September 1939 prompted the United Kingdom and France to declare war on Germany, kicking off World War II. Historians from a variety of countries have examined and understood the global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945 and was the worst battle in human history. And we even can't imagine how devastating it will be if there is anything called World War III mapping its route. France, Poland, and the UK were the Allies when World War II began in 1939. The British dominions of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa joined a few days later. As the war progressed, more countries joined the Allies, including two large powers that had originally planned to remain neutral. The four powers, which included the Big Three, the UK, the US, and Russia, as well as China, headed the Allied countries. More than a half-dozen other countries chipped in as well. The Declaration of the United Nations, signed by the four powers on January 1, 1942, and 22 more countries on January 2, 1942, would cement the Allies' union. With the formal inauguration of the United Nations in 1945, the declaration became the United Nations Charter. Now getting back to 2022, the battle between the two countries has already spread to other countries. The Russian invasion is opposed by all founding NATO countries. There are 12 founder nations of NATO out of a total of 30 members, and they have all come up to support Ukraine. The US and the UK have consistently backed Ukraine. NATO and Germany, as well as Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Canada are all supporting Ukraine. Still, a few countries are also actively or indirectly backing Russia in its invasion of Ukraine. Belarus is Russia's most ardent supporter, and it has permitted Russian troops to invade Ukraine over its borders. Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Kyrgyzstan are among Russia's other allies in the Ukraine conflict. Syria has stated its support for Moscow's recognition of the eastern Ukrainian republics. Iran has backed Russian invasion moves by claiming that NATO provocations are to blame. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia have declined to denounce Russian conduct. They are presenting themselves as neutral. On the other hand, India is using diplomatic means to achieve its goals. They get along well with both countries. They express compassion for Ukraine while remaining silent on the Russian invasion's acts. Geopolitical experts said that the next few weeks are going to be crucial in terms of figuring out whether the war spreads beyond Ukraine. Russian media is even broadcasting the war updates, labeling it as World War III. The sinking of the Moskva was declared the start of World War III by officials from Russian state television. Putin was said to be seeking vengeance. The claims are noteworthy because they were broadcasted on Moscow's state-run television. Russia is analogous to China and North Korea, where the state-controlled media is regarded as the only official voice. As a result, the clouds of a full-fledged war could be on the horizon very soon. To conclude, we should hope this never happens and pray that the hope remains viable. If it happens, the mayhem would cause complete annihilation. With that being said, that takes us to the end of the episode. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel and push notifications bell to keep up with our work.